The answer is absolutely. It is possible. There are signs that I look for when someone has had an experience of cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. And what happens right after the change of perspective. The losing of all doubt that this is the correct path. The just the way you see the world around you is easier to deal with. You won't be breaking precepts without feeling very guilty. Those are some of the signs that I look for when someone has had this experience. Now, this is a very personal experience. It's not it's not something that somebody can talk you into or out of because you know you have had this experience. It's life-changing, and your life becomes a little bit easier, more alert to when you do break a precept, or if you do break a precept, that you will want to confess it to someone and forgive yourself for breaking a precept with the determination to not do it again. It seems to me that a lot of people that are teaching meditation, they don't put very much of an emphasis on breaking precepts, on keeping the precepts, and I think that's a mistake. I know here in this country, if you take a retreat, you recite the precepts one time for the whole retreat. And through my own practice and through the observation of other people, we learn more and more that precepts are the cause of hindrances. That's why you have problems when you're sitting in meditation if you don't understand about the precepts very well. You wind up fighting what's happening with the precepts. You try to fight the precepts. You try to make the precepts go away and stop. Now, I have a friend here in America that for 50 years, he's been teaching a kind of meditation that doesn't emphasize the understanding of precepts. And he has hindrances himself after 50 years of quite intensive practice and quite good practice, but he still has fear coming up in his sitting. And he talks about this with large groups of people, and you can hear he's he has some fear in his voice that says that he still has this hindrance. and doesn't understand it. And he's been teaching thousands and thousands of yogis about straight vipassana practice. That's what he's been teaching, without the understanding of the importance of keeping your precepts without breaking them. Even saying a little thing that's not true can cause problems when you sit down and try to meditate. It'll pull your attention away from your object of meditation. And the way that people are taught, and I've read this in a lot of earlier last century literature, that you're supposed to suppress it, you're supposed to push it down, you're supposed to stop the precept from being there. Now, this goes against what the Buddha is teaching. The Buddha says your definition of mindfulness is to remember to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. Now, this works all the time. Whether you're sitting in meditation or your daily life, you need to develop your meditation, your mindfulness, so you can observe. And the advantage of keeping your precept is you know what you're going to do and what you're going to say before you do it. Now, this is sharp mindfulness. And your progress is much, much faster when you realize that anything that comes up and distracts your mind away from your object of meditation is caused by breaking a past precept. Now, you might know what that is, or you might not. It doesn't really matter. It's what you do with that counts. What you do with what arises in the present dictates what happens in the future. That's karma. Now, if you choose to fight it and suppress it, and what happens is the precept or the hindrance, gets bigger and stronger. And it will always be coming back. Now, it's a real interesting because it keeps coming back to try to show you that you have a guilty feeling for breaking a precept. And that feeling is going to stay there until you recognize it, release it, relax a little bit, relax the tightness in your head and your mind, smile, like you see right behind me, smile. Then come back to your object of meditation. Now, this is right effort, what I just described to you. Right effort is not practiced by most people because they try to suppress something. That means they're going off of the path. Release is interesting because when a hindrance arises and it really gets us, it really takes all of our attention, you're feeding that instead of letting it be. You're taking it personally instead of seeing the impersonal nature of it. So I have developed over the years something that I call the 6 R's, which is right effort. It's just a different way of describing it. Any kind of distraction, if it's an itch, if it's a cough, if it's a memory of something that happened in the past, you get involved with it and you try to analyze it and you try to think about it. Now you're not meditating anymore. You're completely caught up in a problem that you think is a problem. It's not really. It's only a distraction. But the more you think about it, the longer it's going to stay. The release step says, as soon as you recognize a hindrance arising, then release it. Don't keep your attention on the hindrance. Even if it doesn't go away, when you relax that tightness caused by the hindrance, and that tightness is craving. When you let go of the craving by relaxing, your mind becomes clear. Your mind becomes alert. Your mind becomes pure because there is no craving. You've let go of the craving. Now, there's a lot of discussion with a lot of different groups about craving. And I spent 12 years in Asia. I understand very much that problem because I was going to major teachers, very famous teachers, and asking them directly what they thought craving was. Now, I understand that a second language is difficult, and every time you change from one language to another, there's something that's lost. And what's been lost is the definition of craving. So what is the definition of craving? Craving is, I like it, I don't like it, mind. It's the false belief in a personal self. Every time you get caught up in that false belief of the personal self, there's a hindrance that is involved with that. When you let it be, don't keep your attention on the hindrance and relax, it's weakening that false belief in a personal self. It's weakening it a lot. And right after you use that relax step, your mind is clear. Your mind is very bright. Your mind is very alert. And there's no false belief in the personal self. So you have let go of the hindrance. Sometimes you might have to do it more than once, but it weakens it every time you do that. So there are some definitions, which I'm big on definitions. I really like definitions to try to come across with a definition that is clear enough for everyone to understand. And when they try this extra step of relax, and in the Satipatthana Sutta, it says, relax on the in-breath, relax on the out-breath. Okay, so it means relax a lot, not just relax one time and then forget about it. Excuse me. So every time a hindrance comes up, every time a distraction comes up, you need to release the distraction. Don't keep your attention on the distraction. You need to relax the tightness that is the craving. I like it, I don't like it. And then you have to bring up something that's wholesome. And I get a lot of criticism because I tell people I want them to smile. Now, you have to understand there are some kinds of meditation that are being taught right now that lead you away from the Buddha's teaching. And I know I'm going to be criticized for saying that, because they'll say, well, I'm following what it says, what the Buddha says, but you're not doing what the Buddha says. The Buddha said we're the happy ones. What's the expression best served for happiness? Smiling, a light mind, a mind that is very observant. The more you smile during your daily life, the sharper and more clear your mindfulness becomes. And the clearer your mindfulness is, the more alert you are when there is the temptation to break a precept. Then you cannot do that. It's your choice. So everything is interconnected. Everything is very clear when you follow all of the steps of the Buddha's practice. And over the years, a lot of those steps have been ignored or try to solve with, I love the psychology, because it tries to verbally solve a mental problem. And you can go to a psychologist with a problem and they'll talk about where that came from. And you might go to them, say, once a week for years. And you just rehash the same problem, but it doesn't solve the problem. Until finally you go to them and say, I don't want to go anymore. This is enough. I've paid you more than enough money. So it's very clear that there is still something lacking in a different approach. The Buddha was brilliant. The Buddha, he had the monks memorizing all of his suttas. until finally they got written down. And therein lies some of the problem, because when you write it down, it's not quite as accurate as reciting things and getting them clear. And another problem is going from one country to another and changing the language, because you lack something in the translations. Now I have a lot of different translations of books, and we go over that very, very much, and we try to get the translators that already have the practice so they know what the spirit and the literal meaning of some things are, and they're better suited to do a translation. But it still always comes back to the whole reason that we've been reborn is because we've broken precepts in the past. All of us. Not once, lots. Many, every lifetime. And we wind up trying to make some philosophical words that sound good, but when it gets to the practical aspect of the practice, it's not the same. Now, you look at the Satipatthana Sutta, and that's the instructions for meditation, all meditation, not just breathing, but it says breathing in this part. It uses that as the example, but you still use the right effort no matter what your object of meditation. Now, it's real interesting in the suttas that the Buddha actually spent more time teaching loving kindness meditation and the Brahma Viharas than he did mindfulness of breathing. Now, mindfulness of breathing is very popular, and the Buddha has said that when you practice loving kindness meditation, your progress in meditation is much faster with the loving kindness and the Brahma Viharas than it is with any other kind of practice. Why is that? Because you can take your loving kindness into your daily life, and you can radiate loving kindness quickly and easily and have that uplifted, wholesome mind. It's easier than only doing, say, mindfulness of breathing. When you get into your daily life, what are you supposed to do? Pay attention to your breath or pay attention to what you're doing? Can you put loving kindness into something and radiate loving kindness without breaking your concentration? It's much easier to stay with the loving kindness, so you do it more. And as a result, your progress is much faster. Now, I teach mindfulness of breathing. I mean, I practiced it for 20 years, actually longer. I practiced it for much longer than that. And I'm very familiar with loving kindness meditation, and I'm very familiar with mindfulness of breathing. So if somebody comes and they insist on doing mindfulness of breathing, I can teach you that. But I also tell people that when you do loving kindness meditation, your progress is seen very quickly. When you practice mindfulness of breathing, your progress is not so quick. It takes about 6 weeks to get where people who do a 10-day meditation retreat with me, they are much more advanced in 10 days than the mindfulness of breathing. I have many students that are very successful. And when I say successful, I mean they have attained at least the first step of becoming a noble disciple. And that means becoming a Sotapanna. I've tried to get the people around me to make lists of people that are successful, just so that they can see for themselves, yeah, this does work. And there's going to be a lot of people around you that say, oh, prove it. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. So I try to tell people that are successful that unless they know someone else is successful, they can talk with them about what their practice is doing, because there's lots more still to do. But don't just go around saying, I'm a Sotapanna. You have to treat me with respect. I tell people that I don't want them talking like that. Why? Because it causes too much doubt with other people. And this is a personal thing. It's not something to be blabbed about. Now, my teachers, the ones that I have given the okay to understand and teach other people, can give retreats and that sort of thing, they have to be at least had the experience of becoming a Sotapanna. That way they have gone through the experience and they understand much more deeply than someone who hasn't gone through that. So worldwide, I'm starting to have quite a few teachers that are taking off and showing other people the importance of right effort. Now, when I talk about the Eightfold Path, I don't talk about right this and right that. I give it other names because they're easier to understand. And I call right effort harmonious practice. Because that's what it is. When you let go of hindrances, your mind is uplifted. Your mind is pure. That is when you are in harmony. And it is a practice. It's something that you have to do, or you should do every day, but not just while you're sitting. Use the harmonious practice with your daily activities. Now, I did a lot of retreats, really a lot. And always at the end of the retreat, the teacher would say, now go out and be mindful. But they never told you what that meant or how to do it. I tell people to go out and smile. Why? Because it improves your mindfulness. So everything is more clear and necessary when you fully understand what hindrances are all about. It's not just something that comes up and, I have this fear, I have this anxiety, and you get caught up in it and you try to analyze it and then you try to think it away. That's not the way to handle it. The way to handle any kind of fear. Now I'm telling people that what needs to be done with fear is laugh. It's only a hindrance. And that's part of the Eightfold Path, isn't it? Laugh, not as some kind of control mechanism, but watch what happens automatically. When you have fear, when you have anxiety, when you have anger, when you can laugh with yourself for getting caught because that craving is there, when you can laugh with yourself, all of a sudden, the craving disappears. Your mind becomes light. You don't have a mind that's like tight like a drum. You have a mind that is more open, more relaxed, and in harmony. Now, a lot of times people don't understand that when you use the 6 R's, Brenda has it right behind her head there. Those are the 6 R's. The 6 R's, every time you practice it, you're practicing the entire Eightfold Path. And that's what the Buddha was trying to get across. And you can do it while you're walking down the street. You can do it while you're talking to someone else. You see your mind is tight, you relax. Now your mind is open, it's clear. You can do it at work. You can do it while you're playing. There's no time in the day that you can't use the 6 R's or right effort, if you want to call it that. The 6 R's are just breaking down the 4 parts of right effort a little bit more so that it's easier to practice, it's easier to do. Now, this goes against the mainstream of meditation that's being taught. And there's a lot of resistance to it. And I don't understand it, really. Why are you resisting right effort? It doesn't seem to make sense. But there's strong attachment. I know the way and I'm going to do my way no matter what. Instead of having that heavy, tight, critical mind, why don't we try something new that helps to have a light, harmonious mind? I understand those attachments, and if you would have come to me when I was practicing a different form of meditation, I was practicing straight vipassana, I would have said the same thing because I was attached to it, but I would have heard it. And at some point, I would have thought, well, let's try that. Let's try this relaxed step and see what happens. But I have a curious mind. A lot of people, they're just fine with the way things are, and they're not so curious. But I've had a lot of suffering in my life, and I really wanted to find some way to let it go, because that's one of the things the Buddha taught, second noble truth. What is the cause? Well, the cause is craving. How do you let go of craving? Not by pushing it away, because it always comes back. And your life shows you that this painful way of saying everything in life is suffering, that's not a true thing. That isn't what the Buddha said. The Buddha said there is suffering in life. Yeah, well, that's what it is to be a human being. But there's also the way to let it go. The third noble truth is right or harmonious practice. And you can prove that to yourself just in one sitting. I have a lot of people that get in touch with me and say they're really, really thankful that they ran across this method. And this method is not Vimalaramsi method. All of the credit goes to the Buddha. He found it. It has nothing to do with me. All I'm doing is repeating more and more what the Buddha was talking about and trying to put it into words that make sense and is easy to understand. An interesting thing that happens with my students is when they do become Sotapanna, and all before they've been studying suttas and trying to understand them, and oh, it's so complicated, I just don't understand this, I don't understand that. After they become a Sotapanna, they start reading the suttas and it makes sense. They have the understanding because of the practical application of the Buddha's path. I used to tell people, I don't want you to read. You read too many Buddhist books and you get really confused. After you have this experience of being successful with the meditation, after you have this experience, then you say, okay, now you can read whatever books you want to read. You read books that a lot of people have written and you start going, oh, that's not right. There's a mistake there. That isn't what the Buddha said. How do you know that? Well, because you know from direct experience. there's a lot of monks that only study the suttas, and their understanding is not a tenth of the understanding that people have when they use the direct path, when they use right effort, harmonious practice. So I've been talking for a long time. Do you want me to continue, or what do you want?
Excuse me, Bhante.
Yeah.
I told the people here if they have a question, they can send
I would prefer
in the
that.
chat.
Yeah, why
So
don't we
translate.
do that?
Yeah.
So, Hardika, what's your question?
I don't have any question right now, Bhante. How are you, Bhante?
I'm well. I'm shocked that you don't have a question. Okay.
That would be a first.
Bhante, I have a question, Bhante.
Yes, please.
Bhante, based on your experience giving retreat, is there any non-Buddhist that achieving Nibbana?
Yes. You don't have to be a Buddhist. I have taught Muslims, and after they were successful, not many, I'll say that, but there is some. Then they said, can we go back to praying 5 times a day? And the answer is, of course they can. They can do whatever they want. It's their life. Now, this is kind of a question that I get at the end of every retreat. What am I supposed to do next? Well, it's up to you what you do next. I do recommend that you sit for an hour at least. If you have more time, sit longer. But if you want to go explore some of the other things that the Buddha was teaching, Sariputta, in one of the suttas, it says he would go out in the morning and he would sit all day and come back in the evening. And Ananda looked at him and he said, your features are very bright and shiny. What kind of meditation have you been doing? And Sariputta said, I've been practicing the first jhana, only the first jhana for a whole day. Now, what's the advantage of doing that? When you do that, you see a lot of other subtle little things that you've never seen before in the first jhana. He came back the next day. Ananda said, your features are really bright. Your face is very clear. What did you do today? Oh, I sat in the second jhana. So he'd take a whole day to sit in a jhana. You can do that. Your understanding is strong enough that you make a determination what jhana you want to sit in and sit. So it's your choice. Some people, they want to practice seeing past lives. You can do that. You don't have to be rigid with this practice at all. And it can be a lot of fun. One of the funnest states to be in, to me, is infinite space. I love infinite space. And I understand infinite space very deeply because I spend time doing it. What do you want to do? If you want to chant, well, chant. There's nothing wrong with chanting. Chanting can be fun. It can settle your mind to a degree. You're not going to get into a jhana when you chant, but that's okay. A lot of people have this idea of because when you're in retreat, you don't send loving kindness to people that have died. Well, the only reason that is because you're in retreat and you want to see progress, and that stops the progress. But when you get off retreat, if you want to send loving kindness to anyone that's passed on, please do. But the thing I want to really stress is you are in charge of your life. And your job is practicing generosity in all ways. Help other people overcome their pain. Help them in whatever way that seems right to you. It doesn't necessarily mean with money. It means with effort too. Help if they have a big bundle that they're carrying and they look like they're suffering. Go up and help them. I don't care whether they're Christian or Muslim. It doesn't matter. That's only philosophy, that stuff, to be quite honest. What matters is what you do with what presents itself to you in the present. Sometimes just using your words to make somebody else smile. That's practicing generosity. When the Buddha was talking about what meditation is, he said it's 3 parts. The first part is generosity. Why is that first? Because that helps you overcome your suffering and it helps others overcome their suffering. Having a critical mind does not help anyone. Having a mind that's very attached and hard, you suffer, and you make other people suffer by the things that you say. So using your speech to help others be uplifted and happy, that is a great form of generosity. The second part we've talked about a lot. Keep your hindrances. Life turns out to be quite magical the more you keep your hindrances. You can have a thought. This is something that just happened to me a little while ago. I had a thought. I knew I was going to be getting something in the mail, and the thought came into my mind, I wonder when that's going to show up. Right after that, it showed up. And that made life kind of fun, you know? David and I seem to be doing it more and more. We tell each other about it and we just kind of shake our head and go, yeah, this is good stuff. But having fun in life. and being able to sit down for at least an hour, and then that's your private time. That's when you can go deeper into your meditation, although you can have deep meditation at any time. But that's your practice time. Now, I have quite a few students that haven't quite experienced the Nibbana, but they sit with a quiet mind. And they complain because there's hindrances. Well, the instructions are when you get to the quiet mind, every tiny movement of mind's attention, you have to 6R, or I say relax because that's the same thing, and stay with the quiet mind. But they let their mind carry on, and they get involved in this and that and analyzing this and wishing for that. And well, all of that's distraction because it's a hindrance, because there is the wrong belief in a personal self. I am that attached to it. So you have to sharpen your mindfulness. You have to take more interest in staying with your object of meditation, not forcing it. If you force it, it'll give you a headache. But learn the balance of the effort that you put in. And that's some of the things that Sariputta was teaching himself, because that's what he was doing, teaching himself just like you teach yourself. I'm not your teacher. I'm a guide. My job is to make sure that everything is going along well for you. I'm willing to give a lot of my time and effort to just do that for you. That's my generosity, my gift to you. And that's one of the things that makes teaching so much fun, because you get to give continually. Okay, I've gone on for a long time again. Is there another question? Please don't be afraid to ask.
Hi,
There's
Bhante.
no such thing as a bad question. Hello, how are you, Andy?
How are you, Bhante?
I'm happy to see you.
I'm very happy to see you again, too.
What's your question?
There is some confusion about precepts around here. They say about the second precept. If we buy a stolen good from someone who stole something from someone else, and we know that was a stolen good, then we are broken a precept, right?
Yes.
They make
If
that
you know, you're gonna feel guilty for doing it, and that's really the measure that you use with your daily life. If you know something was stolen, you know really you don't deserve to have it, and you'll feel guilty for doing it, then you are breaking the precept.
Okay. Then the second question is related to the first question.
Okay.
Similarly, they say if we are not allowed to buy something that was stolen, then we should not buy something that was killed by someone else.
No. Oh, look up Sutta number 55 in the Majjhima Nikaya,
Yes.
and it will tell you that there are 3 conditions for killing. And this is for a monk, but it also is pretty true for laymen too. If you see it being killed, then don't do anything with that. Don't get involved with that. If you hear it being killed, don't get involved with that. Or if you suspect that it was killed directly for you, for instance, you go to a restaurant and you order lobster. It's alive and then it gets killed. There's bad karma involved with that. And that will come back as a hindrance. And now you have to deal with the hindrance so you can purify your mind. See, the whole point of using the 6 R's is purifying your mind from past wrong action. So you feel guilty, don't do it. If you think you're going to feel guilty, don't do it. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay.
Hope to see you soon in Indonesia.
I didn't catch that part. Say it again.
Hope you to see you soon in Indonesia again.
We'll see. These bones are getting old.
Oh, Bhante, you're still young.
Yeah, I wish. But we'll see. David suggested, well, he didn't suggest it, I did. He suggested coming to Indonesia by boat. And I suggested giving a retreat on the boat. So we'll see.
Oh, that would be a new experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah. When I was in India, I was in quarantine for 5 months. The quarantine's supposed to be 14 days. And they wouldn't even let people go out for shopping to get food. But we did okay. People found out that there was a monk in the neighborhood, and we had enough food for lots of people. We actually gave a lot of food away. So, any other question?
Yes, Bhante, I have a question from one of the meditators. He asked whether an anagami can go lower down to Sotapanna or
No.
the Sakadagami go lower down to Sotapanna. That was my
No.
answer is no, but we'd like to have your confirmation.
You've already had the experience. How can you
Yes.
go down?
Exactly.
No, the only thing is, it is kind of tricky, and you might misjudge where you're at. And just because you are at these different stages doesn't mean that there can't be some broken precepts that occur. So I'm not 100% correct every time. I can misjudge where somebody else's experience is if they don't tell me exactly what their experience is. If they make it up, well, when you're practicing this, you don't want to be breaking a precept of not saying the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do, and I misjudge and I say, well, that's what your experience is, and yeah, you're saying yes to all of these answers, then I suggest that you are at this level. But I don't know for sure. You're the one that knows for sure. And if you misjudge, well, keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But you can let go of that whole idea of having this that experience. There's some science that I go by when I suggest that you have this experience, but if you're not completely honest with me, then and you haven't had it, you have to blame yourself for that. Don't be blaming me because I didn't have the information.
Right. That's why we have the checklist, Bhante.
Yes. Now, I had this one man that he had the experience while he was here at Dhamma. And he wrote and he said, I haven't seen you for over a year and I'm still happy. And that's one of the judges of whether you're successful or not. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. I have a
Okay.
question which I will translate for you.
Okay.
Bhante, is it possible that all beings reach the sainthood at the end, where there will not be a lower realm and no human realm?
No. It's not possible that all beings are going to experience this at the end. They have to practice. They have to have this understanding. Now, if you become a Sotapanna, you're not going to be born less than a human being, but probably what's going to happen is you're going to be reborn in either a Devaloka or a Brahmaloka and be there for quite a period of time. From there, you can attain getting off the wheel. You can become an arahat. And it all comes from your basic understanding and direct experience of being a Sotapanna. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, Bhante.
Any other question?
Bhante,
There
I
was
have
this.
a question, Bhante.
Okay.
I heard about paramita. They say that we have to fulfill our paramita from our past life and this life to achieve Nibbana. Is that true, Bhante? What is paramita exactly?
Well, they're past actions, right? They're purifications. How can you forfeit something that you've already done? That karma is there. You don't forfeit karma. You go beyond karma when you get off the wheel, of course. But I don't know how you would forfeit a past action because it's already done. You can develop more, of course. That's what you basically do when you become a Sotapanna. You basically become more wholesome. You still have your moments where you can break a precept, But there are remedies for that. So the whole point comes down to having happiness in your mind, having uplifted thoughts in your mind as much as possible. And that's what the precepts are all about, or the parami are all about. Okay?
Sis Juliana, please ask Bhante directly.
Don't be shy.
Namo Buddhaya, Bhante.
Hello.
Yeah, I want to ask, what is the best? What is the best time to meditate? In the morning, noontime, afternoon, evening time, or any time is good?
Well,
Namo
any
Buddhaya,
time is
Bhante.
good, and all the time is good.
Do we have to provide any special room or specific spot to meditate? Hello?
I'm thinking what you're asking.
Do we have to provide any special room or specific spot to meditate?
Special rules? I've given you the special rules this whole talk. Keep your precepts without breaking them. Practice your generosity. This is all day. You don't need to. If you set a time, if you set aside a time every day, it gets easier and easier to do that because you start to make it a habit. But for me, the best time for meditating, which I've been doing lately, is between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's when it's the quietest. But I don't recommend that for you. It's
Okay.
you do what you feel is right. You have your everyday life. See, this is the advantage of being a monk. I have time to do it. So I can go to bed at 1, get up at from the meditation from 3 or 4, whatever, however long I sit. Then if I'm tired, I go back to bed and I might sleep for another 4 or 5 hours. But I have time to do that. I don't have to get up and go to work. That's one of the advantages of being a monk. Okay?
Bhante, one more question here.
Namo Buddhaya, Bhante.
A question from one of the online retreatants. Why is it that not everybody can receive when we share our loving kindness? She heard in one of your Dhamma talks to radiate loving kindness, and then she did it to the cousin, and everybody around it go away.
Well, because their mind is unwholesome at that time. They aren't comfortable around being something that's wholesome. They still receive it, but they're not as comfortable as they could be. I had a nephew or a cousin that was an alcoholic, and I hadn't seen him for a long time, many, many years. So seeing him, I was happy to see him. I started radiating loving kindness, and he couldn't stand being around me. He didn't like being around someone that was wholesome. He felt excuse me, he felt more comfortable being around his friends that were doing the same unwholesome things that he was doing. Loving kindness is a kind of protection. And when you radiate loving kindness, that protects you from bad things. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay.
Bhante, I have other question, Bhante.
Okay.
I heard about people born with 2 roots and people born with 3 roots, Bhante. They said that only 3-rooted people that can achieve Nibbana. Is it true, Bhante?
Right. The other ones, their karma is such that they would not be able to hear and understand the Buddha's teaching. Now, if you want to look for an example of that in the suttas, you go to sutta number 35. And he was, what I can't pull his name out right now, 35. Sachika. Sachika, he was a debater. He listened, he got a lesson from the Buddha. He saw that there was advantage of that, but he didn't understand a lot of what was being said. And he came around the Buddha a few times and tried to catch him in some kind of a philosophical debate. And the Buddha always turned the tables on him. And it also in, I think it's Sutta number 9 in the Majjhima Nikaya, in the Digha Nikaya, the Buddha went to a meeting place, and this guy that was the teacher saw the Buddha coming, and all of his disciples, they were talking very loud, and they were generally just being unmindful about things. And the Buddha gave a discourse to the teacher, and the teacher is the only one that heard it. All of the others, they didn't understand what was being said. Why are you saying this stuff? It doesn't make sense. But it did to the teacher. And he was the only one, they said, out of 350 people that understood it. This is one of the things that I very much appreciate about Buddhism, is it doesn't have to do with proselytizing and trying to convince somebody of something. They see the sense in it, they can try it. They don't see the sense in it, fine. Okay.
Bhante, there are 2 questions. Is that still okay? Okay. The first question is, Sotihotu Bhante, is the usage of mosquito repellent or mosquito spray? So in order to avoid the mosquitoes when we are at home or meditating, can be regarded as breaking the first precept, because it will be possible that we might kill a living being, and can it cause karma, unintentional karma, because Indonesia is the tropical country. Thank you.
Yes, I understand. It says it in the word. It says repellent. That doesn't mean kill. It means stop the insect from biting you. There are lots of different kinds of repellent that don't kill the animals. Cayenne pepper, red pepper, hot. They can stop ants from crossing it. And you have this chalk that you can use. Ants are a bigger problem than mosquito to me. But mosquitoes they can cause malaria. So it's okay to repel them, but don't use insecticide to get rid of them, because that does kill them. So if you use the chalk for ants, it stops the ants from crossing them. And if you watch the ant, it will go right up to it and go, oh, no, and turn around and go another way. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it's insecticides that is the problem. If you use an insecticide and if you spray it where those beings aren't, my understanding is those beings will come up to it and go back. So it turns out to be a repellent. But if you spray directly on living beings, yes, you get some bad karma for that. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. The other question is, let me go back up. They asked the question in the chat. Okay, so one of the online retreatants asked, what is Buddhism view about LGBT?
Wrong sexual activity is sexual activity under the care of a guardian. That means parents. Also, it's sexual activity with another person's mate. It doesn't say anything about male or female, or it just says mate.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it comes down to any sexual activity that causes pain to arise, mental or physical, in another being. Don't do that. Now, this is a question that's just coming up these days because it's being advertised a lot on TV and movies and that sort of thing. It's only about 5% of the population that are affected by that one way or the other. So it's not a big question.
Okay.
But Buddhism doesn't have any kind of judgment as to whether you're going to get bad karma because you have sexual activity with someone of the same sex. There's no judgment one way or the other. It's meat. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. If you have questions and you speak English, then you can ask directly, please. Yang bahasa Indonesia boleh di chat room, diketik lagi.
Ada yang masuk, sis?
Bro Miki mau tanya lagi?
Nggak, udah nggak ada yang masuk, sis.
Okay. No more questions, Bhante.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure, and it makes me very happy to see a lot of you that I know. So I wish all happiness and harmony in everything that you do.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Nanti.
Okay. Let's share some merit. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and devas and nagas of mighty power share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Bhante and David. And Bro
Thank you,
Miki.
Bhante. Thank you, Bhante and David.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.